Yeah, welcome to Marcos on Air with my co-host Chelsea, the fairy, getting ready to sprinkle some pixie dust on us right here.
Where's the
And
thing?
there we go.
Oh,
And
magic.
we're sitting here with Mr. Mike Carnes, and Mr. Mike Carnes was and continues to be a good brother to me. I actually met Mike when I was coming out of a very difficult time in my life, and so he mentored me, and he didn't introduce me to my spirituality, but he definitely cultivated and nurtured what already had been in there. And so because of that, I consider Mike Carnes my brother, my friend, and it's an absolute pleasure for us to be sitting here today and just catching up. And welcome to the show, man. Maybe you can introduce yourself to the
Oh,
audience.
wow, man. Thanks for the introduction. I don't know how to. Well, I can't respond to that. Thank you for the flowers, my brother. It was definitely organic when we met each other. I know you always consider me like a mentor, or person, but I really didn't see it that way. Like it was like friends, and friends for the fact where there's like no necessarily leadership or anything like that, but there's a lot. You always say there's a lot of things that you've learned from me, but I've been doing the same. Like, so it's kind of like we're equal with
Yeah.
one another.
Like kindred
Neutral.
spirits, huh?
Yeah,
Very kindred.
Five of
spirits.
clubs.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Love that.
I love his discipline.
Oh,
Marcos has some great discipline. That's one of the first things I met out of him.
that's so nice.
You got to have it.
Yeah.
I think undisciplined, I'm just like a wild child.
Yeah.
And in the past, that wildness probably got me into some trouble. And so I think understanding that, it's allowed me to cultivate some discipline in my life, some structure, some routine, to keep me focused. So I appreciate that. Yeah. So Mike Carnes, I guess we can start at the beginning, man. Where you from?
All right, I'm from the South Side of Chicago.
Oh,
Born, maybe not raised. I lived there until I was 18. Went to school in Canada, so that was another actual place that I believe that I was raised from too. And then I moved from Canada to Los Angeles 20 years ago, September 9th, 2002. So my anniversary just came up 2 days ago.
Nice.
Yeah.
You're a true Angelino.
True, Angelina. I pay a lot of taxes here, so I would just say that.
right. You're stuck here.
I'd say I'm from Los Angeles. I was just born in Chicago,
Where in Chicago? I'm just curious.
South side of Chicago.
Like where?
Well, there's a landmark. I live off of 79th and Halsted. That is where the Muslim temple is, where
Okay.
Louis Farrakhan, they used to be. But they had that big moon in Chicago when they moved from New York to Chicago. It was right down the street from my block. So seeing, which was very good for me. But in the neighborhood that I grew in, it was a custom for me to see African American males in suits.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I saw that more than I saw like the baggy jeans.
Where's your suit today? I'm just kidding.
Oh, I was
I'm just joking.
No, that's it. That's important though, because I feel like proximity plays a role into what we feel we can do, what's attainable.
Right.
So like, unlike Mike, I didn't have that contrast. So in my experience, I never felt like that was attainable for me. Suit and kind of blue collar, white collar.
Really?
That for me didn't come to later on in life. But it was because I was put in some situations where I was able to see people like myself doing things that were different from what I grew up from. So that's pretty cool, man, that you had that experience.
Yeah, so it's like a mentality. Like I know I feel good wearing a suit. I don't know about you, but when I have to wear a suit, I like to wear it nicely. But it's a button up mentality. Like you want to have like your mental game button up, and like
Right.
your speech button up, and your behavior button up, and there's still you, but then there's also another like a professional you that's inside of you. So that's kind of how I gathered seeing people in suits.
I like
Yeah,
that.
so it represents more.
Yeah.
I never looked at it from that perspective. For me, like when I got into suits initially was for court. So I'm like,
So you had a completely
I
different.
Definitely have to be buttoned up.
You gotta be buttoned up.
You're like fucking suits. I hate these
Fucking
suits.
I hate suits. I hate court. But getting through that now, when I wear a suit, if I wear it, I feel like I do it more out of respect for the people who I'm sitting with, right? So
Presentation.
yeah, because I respect you and I admire you, I want to show up looking good for you. So, but I love the buttoning up also representing like the outlook on my mind. Is that organized and buttoned up?
The
Is my
discipline,
behavior.
right?
The discipline. Yeah. So I love that.
So I just had a question really quickly. So what would that be for like a woman, like a gown mentality, or I'm just trying to,
Oh, I mean,
so I can embody that,
Like,
right?
yeah,
a gown. What? So what would they? Is
a suit.
a suit?
Suit, a suit too
You can
for
do what they
women.
do.
Okay, I guess
Pants,
that's
suits, yeah, dress.
more feminist. Okay.
Hey, nowadays you got women wearing suits and you got men wearing dresses. So
That's
like
true.
really
Yeah.
So
a
suit or
preference.
dress.
Yeah, however you want to show what makes you feel comfortable. I love that though.
Cool.
So in Chicago, when you came out, when did you get introduced to jiu-jitsu?
Oh yeah, jiu-jitsu. So when I had first got introduced to jiu-jitsu, it was I had a very negative connotation about it. I was a bouncer at a nightclub, and I had did boxing and Muay Thai at first.
Oh,
So,
okay.
In my young, arrogant mind, you would always think whatever you're doing is the best. So you're really good at it, and you will always try to poke holes at something that's the unknown. And we would have a lot of the bouncers that I worked with. They were all like jiu-jitsu practitioners. They were all Hicks and Gracie students.
Okay.
Yeah, but I was even during my arrogant stages, I was also thoughtful a lot of the time. So I would watch how I wanted. There was a purposely pointed time where I wanted to be considered a non-violent person, like even in everything that I do, even in like violence, even when there's time for violence, you can still be non-violent and work away. And,
I love that.
I would see those guys, like when you learn Muay Thai and boxing, like the only way you can kind of calm the situation down is using your fist and your hands. And so I would notice a lot of those guys, they didn't throw punches. They just threw submission holds. And I looked at that as forgiving, because you kind of put a person in a compromising situation. You walk them out, and then you can actually like I'll let you go, and we can forget this all happened. And,
I'll let you go.
and I mean, that give you a chance to have a second chance in life, have a second thought. The art that I knew, once I threw that fist, it was no benign way to solve that issue, to solve that problem. It was fight or flight.
Right.
It was mostly fight.
Wait, where'd the mindset come from wanting to be like non-violent? Like, was it because of the violence you witnessed growing up in Chicago, or?
Yeah.
I'm curious how the mindset took place.
Well, let me give you some context. Before I tell this story, I actually have a very honorable and good relationship with my biological father, but he was a violent person. And I witnessed that. I witnessed that against my mom and the people that he dated and whatnot. But like it was like this yin and yang, because he was also a kind man. It would just be like those bursts. So then when you go through the stages of grief, when you know your father's not in your life, and then you become a young adult. Now you're like, man, you're ready to have that anger towards him, other than forgiving him and knowing that wasn't a path that you was necessarily had to go. As far as being with him, there was other ways that I could have got father figure. Like I had a stepfather and an adopted father that was very good to me, but I started like, I don't want to be like him. He was a black belt. He was like, if you guys are you familiar with Jim Kelly, Like he's a very famous African American black belt back in like the 70s.
Right.
And those Bruce Lee movies, the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
He was part of that crew.
I had a pair of the karate shoes. I was
Right,
just talking
right.
about that. on the last
Right, I used to go
episode.
to a lot of karate films as a kid, a lot of karate shoes, the whole like outfit, and he was really good at what he done. But like his temperament kind of propelled him, kind of put a cap on his life or ceiling on where he was able to go. And during my anger years with him, it was imperative that I wouldn't be like him. I wanted to be able to defend myself and to be able to have like turn my body into a weapon, whatever a samurai is. But I actually started like educating myself on the ways of the samurai. And if you follow these guys, I just don't read the book and try to find ways to manipulate people, but I will always look at like these guys' lifestyles. Like these samurai guys, the guy who wrote Sun Tzu, who wrote the Art of War.
Oh, the Art of War.
He
Great
was
read.
he was a florist. Like he knew how to pick flowers, and he was very loving to his love interests. He was very kind to his daughters, and wrote poetry, and like he was like this it was like the yin and the yang. Like you had that violent side of you, but you also had that other side of you that kind of helped you balance and
Right.
know decide which side to.
Right.
So I started getting into that part, and I was like, well, I got to start finding something that's like non-violent. And I looked at jiu-jitsu, and I was like, even though I don't really like rolling on the ground with men,
You're real close.
right? I started learning it, and then it became like so many lessons in life I learned from jiu-jitsu. I have a couple arts that I've done, but I learned a lot of like my lessons on the mat and off the mat the most from jiu-jitsu.
Okay.
So that's where jiu-jitsu started at.
Nice. Did you ever watch? Was it The Last Dragon? Kiss My Converse like Showdown. Remember that?
Okay, you
That was my guy
that's
right
Barry
there.
Gordon's Last Dragon.
Yes,
yes. The Bruce Leroy.
Bro, I had the nunchucks after that.
I can see you with a nunchuck.
Yeah.
You brought every time there's a bad event that happens in my life or I'm going through a tough situation, that is the go-to movie. Yep,
That's great
my
movie.
Yeah, that's my
I'll have to
movie.
check it out.
Yeah. You gotta watch it.
Vanity, Bruce Leroy. Yeah.
Bruce Leroy.
Showing up.
You can shown up. Yeah.
Such a guy movie.
Yeah. I mean, they have Charles Bronson came after that,
Yeah,
right? All the Charles Bronson. He started incorporating karate into.
Mm-hmm.
You got Steven Seagal kind of came out of that.
What's the recent movie? Bruce Lee
Oh, Bruce
was
Lee.
really big in martial arts.
Yes.
I'm not Bruce Lee. I'm sorry.
No.
Elvis Presley.
Oh,
Elvis Presley was really big in martial arts.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes.
they just released a movie on Hulu, right? His
His documentary, or he has it was a motion picture that just came out recently about him.
yeah, watch that.
I'll check it out.
He's an interesting guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you got into it. So the mindset came from growing up and watching your father kind of have his challenges with anger, and then you making a vow that like you'll never be like that.
wanna be like
You know, it's interesting. I remember saying the same thing growing up about my dad because he was an angry person too, and he had his struggles with addiction, cocaine and alcohol. And I remember saying, man, and he would always cheat on my mom. And I remember, man, I'm never gonna be like that. And I don't know if you experienced this, but it got to a point in my life where it was almost like this self-fulfilled prophecy, where people tell you, or some people used to tell me you're just like your dad. And I used to say I'm never gonna be like him, and then I ended up seeing a lot of myself in him. Did you ever experience that?
Yeah.
What was that like when that moment when you?
Well, there's two ways. There's how I process it now, and then how I process it back then. It was more like a more like an uneducated way of just like you're gonna white knuckle yourself to not doing this, other than asking the whys.
Right.
Right.
Now it's more like I'll ask the whys. Why would I do it this way? And so the part where I had to get over, I had to forgive him to not necessarily have a relationship with where we can like be bosom like father and son again, but the Bible talks about you don't have to love or like your parents, but you got to honor them. And so I would always honor my dad when I see him. I wouldn't challenge him when, like for instance, this just happened yesterday, and bless his heart, he always forgets my birthday. And the thing is, he'll say the same thing, and it's year after year. And other than challenging him, like, you forgot my birthday, I just roll with it. So he calls me on the 9th every year and say, "Oh, son, I'm so sorry. I'm late on your birthday." And I'll turn around and was like, "Well, no, you're 11 days early,
Yeah.
but I'll take the flowers. I'll take it now."
Oh,
And so that's the element where like I honor him, because it's not necessary to. I mean,
yeah.
people can get sensitive about someone missing your birthday, but really, is it that bad? Like,
At least he's even like calling and like
Right.
apologizing for thinking he missed it. I mean, I
Right.
think that's nice in itself.
And
But
you know?
I feel like, though, as a kid, like and this is kind of speaking from just my experience, was I didn't have the capacity to view it from that perspective. For me, it was more about, I think that created like a wound in me, like a void in my heart that would manifest into my life, especially in my adulthood, because I didn't have that peace that you're talking about now.
Right.
And so, yeah, I feel like that's the growth, and I think that's the healing that comes from when we go down that journey, right? To really look at it. Because for years I would say, you know what, I would idealize my father, like he could do no wrong. So if anyone ever talked about him, I was like, oh, he's good, always good, always good. But underneath that, I had all these feelings towards him. That I felt most of my life, like abandonment, rejection, kind of betrayal. And one day it all came to a head. And it was in that moment, I think, where I was able to kind of shift my perception to what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't go into that relationship anymore seeking anything from him, because I know I'm gonna get disappointed. So there's an acceptance
Right.
there that that's who he is, and I've accepted that he's not capable of giving me what I need.
Right.
And
Letting
that's
go.
letting go. And so that was years of therapy.
Yeah.
Like getting to that point where,
Right.
and actually my therapist said, you have to think of your father as someone in a wheelchair, paraplegic in a wheelchair. He's not capable of meeting your emotional needs. And hearing that, feeling that, and accepting that has allowed me to be okay with the way our relationship is today.
right on.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
real good.
It helps because
Honoring him.
Yeah.
That's
Honor
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
honor them because they're wounded too, you know? So looking at their childhood and kind of like what they went through, but you can't do that as a kid, you know? So it's like when you get old enough to kind of really understand where they're coming from,
Right.
you know, and like what was their childhood like? And, you know, it's like then you're breaking all these generational patterns,
Right.
right?
Right. Yeah, because when you're 5, you can't be like, you know, F you, dad, F you, mom, I'm
Right.
packing my bags, I'm leaving.
Oh,
Right.
you think something's wrong with you. Like, what did I do?
Can you talk a little bit about that? What do you mean internalizing that? And maybe you have like an experience where,
Yeah, I think you just internalize it. You know, like my dad died when I was young. So I just kind of think you know, you don't know how to process it. So you internalize it, like, and then I would unconsciously attract unavailable men who would not necessarily leave me, but just were unavailable in some way. So, and then until I went to therapy and kind of worked through that, my own kind of like wounds. But as a kid, you know, you're like a sponge. So you just kind of soak it up and you don't really have the capacity to understand, like, I didn't do anything wrong, but like you think that you did,
right?
right? You think you're like damaged or there's something wrong with you.
Right. Yeah. Why didn't my father want me?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You don't have all the other pieces to the puzzle
Right.
to realize that it's not about you. It's more his inadequacies and things that he
Right.
can't. How old were you when
out of your control.
when your dad?
I was 4.
Oh, okay. You were
Yeah,
young.
yeah.
How'd you find out?
It's weird. It's like the only memory I have of him, he died in a car accident. And I just remember like the cops coming to the door, but I don't remember like anything before.
Right.
It's like weird how your kind of brain just like,
Well, especially
that off.
4 too, right?
Yeah.
4.
yeah.
What was his name?
So his name is Russell.
Russell.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. You're
Chelsea.
welcome.
Yeah. So you got into how yeah, when did you know, when you brought like the Muay Thai piece and the jiu-jitsu piece, that you wanted to compete? How did that come about for you?
Well, I have a natural competitive nature, so I always want to test myself
Okay.
and see who's better.
Right.
Oh, so you went into it wanting to.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, talk a little bit about that. What was the mindset that goes into that?
So it was well, I played basketball and football in high school and grammar school, and I went to college to play basketball. So I was always in a competitive ring. And then it would be like competitive because my father was my biological father was a martial arts like competitor. He would do the karate tournaments and kung fu tournaments around the local area. He was really good.
My dad did that too. It's so interesting. He was like a black belt too.
Really?
Yeah.
So you
Kinda
want to
weird.
be like you. That's a
Cool.
like, well, I didn't know this was what I was doing, but you would think that it's your fault that he's not around or he didn't come or anything
Right.
like that. So maybe if I was a champion, he'll follow me and
Right.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be big and
I'm gonna be better than him.
You gonna
And
see
so
me.
so he can come too, and then now that bring him into my life. a little
Yeah.
bit. So while you're doing that, that is like the spark of my competitive nature. But like I mean, I'll compete with you in anything. Like I do it driving. Like I'm in.
when you're on the freeway.
Right, people
You're
don't
just
even be knowing.
competitive.
Like, turn around.
That's a
gotta
real
get there
thing.
fast.
though.
Right.
That's a real thing. Yeah.
Oh yeah. You don't have the road rage though. huh?
Right.
No, just fighting for position.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm gonna let you go. I'm gonna let you go this one time.
No, the worst is when you got the two just kind of not letting you, cut in. Just let me in.
And what they won, 4 seconds, they got to their job before they.
I've actually timed it, and it makes about a 4 second, like you're saying, difference if you're rushing the work, like going 85, than just going the speed limit
Only
and just
4
staying in
seconds.
one lane.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, the difference is not.
Yeah. I don't rush anymore. So
Yeah.
that's good.
Hey, I worked not well. Good. I'll get back. I'll answer that question. But that's how I worked through anger. I grew up. My mom's a therapist, so and she was always.
My mom's a therapist too.
Oh, right
so
on.
weird.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah.
And she would be like, why don't you start checking yourself when you're driving? I'm like, what do you mean?
Don't therapize
She's
me,
like,
Mom.
let's see if you can.
That's a good place to start,
right,
though.
right. She said, let's see if you can not use your horn for a year.
Oh.
Let's see if you can just let people in front of you.
Wow.
And she'd be like, that. I always think like driving in a car is how I'll give my clients like a good chance to exercise their patience or exercise your temperament.
Nice.
It's a good practice, great
Oh,
practice.
I
We're in that
love
car a
that.
lot, so yeah, that's where I learned.
Smart
that.
mother.
Wait, yeah. So what's your mom's name? And I think you mentioned earlier she just wrote a book, right?
Yeah, the 7-bit. My mom's name, Dr. Beverly Carnes Lowe. She wrote a book called. She wrote a few books, but the latest one she wrote is the 7 Roots of Bitterness, and it's the
that
7
title.
roots that defiles the heart. That we subconsciously don't know that we are doing.
Yeah.
How we process things and
Wow.
little stuff like that. And she goes into like the technology way of like blocking someone's number, unfriending them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to do it sometimes. I mean,
real.
So yeah, you do have to
Right.
like, but like our relatives, like
Oh,
they really think
okay.
it's necessary to block your
Right.
relative number
Right.
or
yeah, no, that's a little
a
intense.
friend that made you upset, like
Right.
outside of like protection, like,
Right.
Of course, so like,
Right.
but like when we had an argument with our best girlfriend and we didn't see things the way our
Block.
yeah.
And then you unblock when you're ready, and then it's like,
I want this toxicity out of my life. And, I'll
That's a
change
real
the thing.
thing,
I'm doing
yeah.
a phone cleanse. Yeah.
Phone cleanse.
so dramatic though, right?
Right.
It's like-
That's like the art of passive aggressiveness.
But I
Yes.
think that's how anger works, though, because anger obviously is is a logical thing, right? The logic mind sitting here could understand, like, yo, that's silly, it's immature. But when you're in those feelings, you're not thinking. The logic is offline. I'm just
Yeah.
hurt, and I want you to hurt. Like
fight or flight.
fight or
Right?
flight. So I think about. I need to read the book. I mean, I've done a lot of work on my own anger, and what I've learned is I tend to internalize it and then self-destruct. So my heart is so polluted with, the bitterness and the anger that I can't even see all the different ways in how I'm harming myself. And that was something that I've learned like recent kind of last 2 years because of things I've gone through in my life. So yeah, anger is very self-defeating
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So
And breaking it down.
And
Like just like what the actual emotions are, you know what I mean? Like with the anger, right? I think is the hard part for a lot of people. It's like we just get reactive, you know?
right,
Instead of what are you actually really feeling right now? Like, are you feeling disrespected? Are you feeling hurt? Are you feeling lonely? Are you feeling abandoned? Are you feeling violated? Like, what exactly is it?
right.
that's true
Be
because
vulnerable.
that's a language in itself. If you think about it, like if you don't know the language, like how could I even articulate to you what I'm feeling?
Right.
I don't know. I mean, half of those emotions I didn't learn till years later. Like, oh, that's what that is. Abandonment.
Right.
Or wait, I got this pit in my stomach. That's shame.
Right.
Let me and I start putting names on it. I developed the language. And then I feel like there were other barriers too, because it's like, wait, I can't tell people that I have these things. They're gonna
Right.
think I'm a punk or something. They're gonna think I'm weak.
Exactly. Right. Weak. That's a
Right.
big thing.
And we talked a little bit
Talk
about that, right?
Yeah.
I,
Like vulnerability being a weakness and not it's a strength.
it's a strength. But I mean, and I know your story too a little bit, and like our upbringings, it like you just didn't tell people that.
Right.
They had names for you,
Yeah.
special names,
Yeah.
like pussy.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, you scared, you weak, like yeah. So you catch on early on, even if the environment's telling you that it's not okay, just by the comments people are making. Sometimes
Yeah.
you're okay. Well, I'm not gonna be that.
Right.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about that, like the anger, and then how have you used some of those feelings or channeled some of those feelings that you
That's a good question. So I I would say martial arts kind of helped me along with them because it gives me so when I'm doing jiu-jitsu, I am forced to think when my heart is pumping and when we like have you guys ever noticed when you're upset like that you didn't run nowhere but that heart is
Yeah.
it's
going.
it's going
It's
right?
ready.
And
Yeah.
so it's like then you get flustered and it's hard for you to think.
Right.
Well, when you're doing martial arts and you're doing a martial art that you're practicing, and there's a submission, like or a choke or arm, like you're like forced to think about all these techniques you have in your head while you're under pressure.
Yeah.
And so it kind of helps me to slow down like events that are happening. Like it's okay. So when I start really getting good at martial arts is when I was able to be patient. And so then I take that patience. I'm able to control. I'm able to be like, all right, well, I can't get my hand here because my heart is racing too much. So let me stop for a minute, kind of stall until I get my breath back and then get back into the fight again. In the fight, like I can like literally stop getting out of the fight, but I'm in the fight and then get my heart back together, get my wind back
Breathing
together,
back.
and then go back into the fight again. And that's how I process my relationship with others that like kind of upsets me. We have this, you guys talked on it, like the fight or flight ordeal. And
Right.
a lot of times we would either get into a full on argument and that's that fight part, or we start throwing fists, or the other thing would be we would walk away. Like, I can't deal with this. You just walk away. How many things have we walked away from because
Right.
we can't deal with it?
because it's too much.
It's too much, right? So I've learned how to like be there, but kind of step away. Be honest with the person. Like, well, you know, man, I'm offended by that. Or if it was something that I did to them, I'm able to. I hate this word, but I'm sorry you feel that way.
Right. I know.
That is like the.
It is kind of, huh?
Okay. So I'll be like, oh man, you know, let me think about that. But for the meantime, like, would you accept my apology? Let me apologize for you, and then maybe we can reconvene.
Right.
Like just being able to calm your breath down and to be able to say that means a lot.
Does.
That's kind of how I start. That's my exercising of my anger. I'm still mad, but I'm like, well, now that I know it,
Right.
like I'm like, okay, well, these are my techniques. Let me take a seat back, let them talk, finish what they got to say, and then go and engage with an apology or with something that diffuses the situation.
Nice.
You know, what's interesting. I feel like it's kind of like meditation, right? For you, but like it connects you to your body, right? To stay present. But like when we're emotionally dysregulated, we literally have like 90 seconds to emotionally regulate,
Oh.
right? So it's like, I think that's a really helpful tool because it helps you to regulate and then you're not just like acting out like fight or flight, right? Because so many people don't know what to do in that 90 seconds.
That's so true. And there's never been a time where I've taken a deep breath and made a bad choice. Even if I'm taking a deep breath just to square up and take a punch,
Right.
like it's going to be a good punch compared to like if I just out of breath and, angry and just take a punch, sometimes I'm going to miss.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, having that mind body connection, taking a breath, allowing the brain to kind of switch from autopilot to a more kind of analytical part where I can assess and take the next right action is huge.
Yeah.
Another one would be in my interpersonal skills. I've developed a cadence of like, I don't want to. The people that say it's holier than thou, but it is like it's a way that you won't offend people as much. And I practice kindness, like that's my first nature towards people. I practice not saying anything bad about people when they're not here,
Right.
or I practice not swearing. I'm still practicing, but I practice not swearing. So I practice. So when I am angry, like none of that stuff comes out. My kindness comes out, or my like. But if you're a natural like nasty person and you're trying to cover it up, and just imagine when you don't have that defense mechanism. You don't have that whatever you're masking. You don't have that. It's open now. You're angry. Now what's inside of you? It's ready to start. It's ready to start coming out. So when I start practicing like kindness towards people and letting my kindness be in action, and loving is a verb. And how do you do that? You do that in action, not just in your words. And
Right.
whatever's inside of you is going to come out. Like what it says in the Bible that whatever inside your heart, like guard your heart with all due diligence, because out of it is the issues of life. So if you are filling your heart with like cadence, that like no matter what the situation is, I'm going to be kind. No matter what the situation is, I'm going to not swear at somebody. No matter what the situation, I'm going to hold my tongue. Like, that gets inside of your heart. So then when that moment comes out, that's the first thing that comes out is like what's inside, not like
Right.
anything anger that you
So
have to punch out.
beautiful. I love that.
Yeah, it reminds me of what just happened maybe a month or two ago with Will Smith and Chris Rock. Right. Chris Rock, was up there kind of just introducing, cracked the joke on Will Smith, and he slapped the shit out of him.
Yeah.
Like on national TV.
Yeah.
So looking at that, you could sit there and like judge that experience, right? And have your ideas and thoughts about it. But I think that if you take a step back and kind of look at it from like how you're sharing, is that underneath that, there was a lot brewing there, I think, for Will Smith.
Yeah.
Right? The events leading
For
up
a
to
long
that,
time, probably,
for a long
right?
time,
Years.
because there were affairs, there were a lot of different kind of things were going on in their relationship, a lot of manipulation, a lot of different things that he was dealing with, and that was like the catalyst that like he was able
to put a face on that thing that he was dealing with.
Yeah.
And that's how he reacted with violence.
Which is not even his nature, right? If you look at his history, his past, like he's not that type of guy. But I think any person put through what he went through and doesn't have the outlet to kind of decompress these feelings and heal is capable of that. No one's exempt of that. I'm not exempt of that. You know what I'm saying?
And I think too, maybe, I don't know, but like it was like the root was like disrespect, right? He probably felt so disrespected in that moment, or like for his wife, right, too. So that was where the anger came from.
Right.
So it was like just building.
Maybe. Yeah, I mean, I think that plays a role, but honestly, I feel like it's even like deeper in the sense that he's been mad at Jada for a long time. She got into an affair, right? And he claimed that it was an open marriage, right? But I mean, did she make him have an open marriage? Like,
Yeah.
just because I don't want to, I don't want to lose you, and I love you.
Right.
I want you to stay. Let's have an open marriage.
Yeah.
You eat that.
There's a lot of stuff
There's
there.
a lot of stuff there.
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
Yeah.
I totally can see that.
And I relate to that.
You do.
You know what I'm saying? Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you forgive then? How do you like come to that of like letting like the water, I don't know, not get too high on the bridge?
That's a great question. It's interesting because I feel like these past 2 years, maybe 3. How long has it been? Because we've been talking about like I think I've shared with you things about my relationship, right? It's been what? That was going on. Was 3 years?
Yeah, maybe.
3 years. Yeah, it's been a while. It's been a long time. So, my marriage went through a difficult time, like going into our 7th year of marriage. And, there were affairs. There were on both sides. And, when we're hurting, I think when I get hurt and I feel these feelings that we've been talking about, I didn't know how to channel that. So I think having that inability to process how I was feeling led to me turning to other things that were unhealthy for me. Like I found myself back in places that I outgrew. I was back at the strip club throwing ones at strippers. Like, how did I get here? Like, what's going on? But it was a very lonely, difficult time for me. And so, going through all that with my wife, I think the hardest thing for me to do was to forgive. And what helped me ultimately in getting to that place was understanding that on both sides, we come from very traumatic upbringings. And I think when trauma is left undealt with, like the relationship deals with it, right? And so having that empathy for her experience and what she's gone through allowed me to kind of be more empathetic and forgiving. But honestly, the more challenging part of that forgiveness was not so much forgiving her, because it's easy for me to forgive other people. But when it comes to myself, that's more of a bigger challenge. And so I think I've struggled more with finding that forgiveness for myself for acting out in ways that weren't true to who I am
Right.
in that situation. So,
Yeah. But it's hard when you don't really have sometimes role models, right? Or anyone that, or any other way to know what to do differently, because
Right.
you immediately went back to ways that you thought maybe helped, right? Going to the strip club or whatever. And you're like, wait, this is not working. This is not helping.
Right.
Right. Like,
yes.
so having compassion for yourself.
Yeah.
you know?
And I think the other part too, like you're saying, I've never really been in that arena before where I've had to practice forgiveness on that level. Like I've always been in situations with people that that I love and care about, and it was easy for me to forgive them, right? But this arena was so new. It's kind of like Mike Tyson says, everyone got a plan till they get punched in the mouth. That's exactly how I felt. It was a punch to the mouth and the gut, and there was no plan or course of action. It was default and going back to like what I knew. But ultimately, it was the journey. I think that journey allowed me to look at things from my past that I haven't looked at, ever. Right? Because they say when things happen, a lot of times other things rear their heads. And so even though I was going through this with my wife, what was coming up for me was the years of abandonment and rejection that I felt from my father. So as difficult and painful as what that journey was, it brought a lot of healing to my heart, and it brought a lot of liberation. And so now it's easy for me to be thankful and grateful for what happened, because at the end result, brought such a beautiful journey inwardly for me. And so for when I think about forgiveness, I think about looking at what does that situation do for you, right? Because a lot of times what affairs and lies and these things, yeah, you go down some sticky situations, but at the end, when you start to heal and look at other parts of your life, you heal and you mature, you grow, and you ascend to a different level. And I kind of feel like that's what it did for me. What are your thoughts, Mike?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, in the whole, we're practicing forgiveness. That topic you're talking about is definitely a final exam. That's one of the,
What is it? I love your analogies.
It's the final
The
exam.
final exam.
yeah, that's the test. That's the test. That's the, of course, it's not fun being on the other end of being cheated on, but one of the things that I took because I had a similar situation happen to me where I was the one that's being cheated on from my wife, and you have this thing where this is where the anger, like you have to not suppress, but you have to start learning how to manage it, or how to process it very well, and of course, like first thing that come to mind, it's what 5'11", 230 pounds,
Right.
black belt, multiple arts. Kind of that. If there's a go button for that one, you let that out the cage and start solving the problems that we have. But
Right.
you do that. Like I will always tell people, you have satisfaction for maybe 10 minutes,
Mm.
Yeah.
and then the rest of your life, you deal with the
Right.
repercussions of that. Yeah. So it was a practice of self-control. Of course, all the negative things that can come to your head or come to my head came to my head. So, like, oh man, I'm a punk. Like my woman cheated on me, and
Right.
I'm like, how I'm gonna, and then I don't pay that back. I'm a double punk, and you start going through that, and then you start going like what you definitely have to have. Self-control is so imperative in this, and it was a good test because then you start going into. Well, we're a little bit open on here, but you start having those visions of, and that would also add more fuel.
Add more fuel.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, we
Right.
all been there. Like you
Right.
start to visualize
Right.
things. I done
Right.
like cut people up like 10 different ways in my head, and it's like, whoa.
Right. But you definitely have to. How did I work through it? One, it was like I started using discipline. So I used as my test of like, hey, self-control. What are your cadence? What is your philosophy that you made for your life? And my philosophy is a lot of biblical scriptures. And Jesus said that I didn't come here to take life. I came here to give it. So those are all the times he could have like came in and had legions of angels come down and save the world. Like he chose not to do it because he was put here on earth for a purpose. And I don't Christianity like normal people Christianity. I do it more in the action person, other than like this is what the Bible said you should do
Right.
it. And
Yeah.
I show it.
And that's what like a real Christian does anyways, right? Like a true one. Show it. You don't like tell people.
Yeah, if someone will have to be like, because we don't announce it, but like then they'll start talking about it. You'll be like, dude, he is a Christian, like,
Right.
That's the best
I
way.
like that.
Actions.
I like that. Right. Like, when
All
they
that.
finally find out, they'll be like, oh, it makes so sense. Like, you are one.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I kind of like it that way. So I just started. And this is the time where I did need the Bible. I started just looking up all the verses of like control and self-control, and like there's so many things that God says when that it is, because we have so many outs in society. Like an out in society is a crime of passion.
Right.
You can legally get out of trouble for offending your accuser. But what were you put on earth to do? Not to avenge losses, but you came put on earth to do. I came here to give life,
Right.
not take it. And that power that's given to me, you can't taint that, because you start doing that, then you just open up the door to a lot of other powers that you're going to start using to overcome one another.
Right.
So yeah, self-control. I started just looking at things that it empowered me as far as, okay, well, how do you process this? Like, the first thing you want to do is, oh, that relationship is over. I ain't never going back to that person ever. That's not the truth, because you still love them.
Right.
So as soon as you didn't got all the fleshly things out, you didn't drafted up the divorce papers, you didn't, kicked her out of the house, or you left the house and took the money. Like, you still love that person, and that person, like, that can still be reconciled. That's not the most. That's not the crucial end of deadly sins to
Right.
ending a marriage. Like, if you look at it, if you got two parties that recognize that mistake, they can grow and be even stronger. So I started, like, just finding ways to always advocate for betterment, not for destruction.
Yeah. Oh, I was just going to say really quickly, it's interesting too, like when people cheat, I know it's like hard probably in the relationship, right? If you get cheated on, but people that do cheat, it's like there's like a lack of self-love there, right? So when you kind of like look at that and like look at how wounded they are, that they would even like go to that and like cheat, right? They don't love themselves,
True.
So it doesn't make it okay, right? I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's, you can see them as like human and wounded, right?
Right. No, it doesn't justify the behavior.
Yeah.
Just like on the other hand of that, like people that cheat, sometimes there's something missing in the marriage, right? Like this lack of intimacy, maybe,
Yeah.
right, or connection,
Right.
And I think it could go either way, right? So, but regardless which one it is, it doesn't justify ever being okay to step out of a marriage,
Right.
So I hear what you're saying, absolutely.
It's like a self-sabotage in some way, right? Because they don't know how to communicate their needs, right?
Right. Yes.
So one of, I think, borderline personality disorder, like if you go through, there's some of the behaviors that they do that kind of gives them that personality. Sleeping with random people or looking to sleep with someone for affirmation
Right.
is
Right.
something that they would do, like careless sex or careless.
Yeah.
I want to feel pretty. I want to feel wanted. Like,
Right.
I'm not wanting this, and so people,
Right.
sometimes we use our sexuality to kind of make us feel important or wanted.
Yeah. And borderline personality too, right? Is just like a more intense version of like an anxious attachment, right?
Yeah.
So, and like avoidant attachment is like just a narcissist. So it's
Right.
like, they're just like, it's a match made in hell,
Oh, man.
A match made in hell. Yeah.
right? But it's like, they attract
Because
each other.
like you, at the end of the day, you still love that person,
Yeah.
right? And so, yeah, how do you walk away from someone that you love that's also abusing you?
It gets messy.
It gets murky. Yeah.
So then a question that I like usually ask like with like my clients, because I'm a therapist as well, like a coach. But when I'm doing couples session, right, I'll really like ask them, I'll send questions beforehand and really ask them like, what was love to you? Like growing up, how do people show you love? And like, when you really like get down to like the nitty gritty of this, they're like, oh, I don't know. Like my parents fought, right? Like
Right.
they don't know what love is.
That's true.
You have a great therapist voice.
Thank you.
My therapist.
There you go.
Well,
I was like, you'd be
You can
drawn to
hire
like,
me.
listen.
You can hire me. I'm pretty good.
Got a website?
I want to just keep listening. Just keep listening.
Yeah.
I can open up. Okay. Oh yeah. I tell you, isn't that like the hardest thing when you guys are sitting in the chair and you have to like,
My clients open up usually, but
Wait,
I think that's you though. I
Maybe.
think that's you. Yeah.
wait, what's the hardest
Yeah.
part? Like getting people to.
Yeah, like telling the truth. They gotta
Oh.
sit there and tell the truth about themselves.
Yeah.
Like if they're forced to be there because the other one, their significant other, won't
Right.
want them to be there. Like they're like, well, I just want you to hear my side of the story,
Right.
and that's it. And they covering up everything else that gets into the nitty gritty, and they think therapists are there for you to
tell
Tell
them.
them,
Like,
yeah.
right. I
Tell on
did
you,
that.
yeah.
Like with my ex a long time ago. Like we went to therapy, and I was like, look at his issues, right? And
Tell him
it's
I'm
like,
right.
right? Like, oh my
Right. I
God.
need
Like
someone to confirm it.
looking back, then I went to my own therapist, and it's like, okay, we can analyze his behavior all day long. Why the fuck were you attracted to that, Chelsea? Right? That's
Oh.
the deeper issue,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Why did you stay for like 8 years with someone who like, was very dysfunctional?
Yes, which kind of brings up another point for me. Like I think about like, yeah, so you get into these situations and it's like, yeah, well, what was your part in it? What could you have done, differently? And I think because of my relationship with anger, I didn't know how to establish healthy boundaries. I
Right.
didn't know how to draw clear boundaries of what was acceptable, what's not acceptable, because I always had that fear of, if I lose control, it's not going to be good. So I've always had this tendency to suppress my anger, to suppress, because I've seen myself act out in rage before and it wasn't pretty.
Yeah.
So I think a big part of that also contributed to me becoming a people pleaser in relationships.
Enablement.
Enablement. I was chief enabler, and my
Right.
grandmother was a chief enabler. So that's just like
I like how you say chief enabler.
chief,
At least you're like a chief, though, right?
chief, master. But those were things that were blind spots for me. Right? We all have blind spots that we don't see, and sometimes other people can see them. And really getting to a point where I can identify with it, accept it, puts me in a position of power where I can start making some changes in that area of my life, because I don't want to be an enabler.
Right.
Right? I want to be empowered. I want to be able to tell you what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, and being able to hold that up. And I
Yeah.
think in relationships, it's really hard to draw boundaries and also be able to hold the boundary up,
Yes.
right?
That's a
we're
huge
good at
one.
pushing. Yeah. So that was some growing pains for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, no, you got to say something.
So did it feel then, because I know for myself when I started to like look at my own behavior, right, and like set healthy boundaries, because I think I abandoned my own needs so much in the beginning for the relationship that when I started to put down, it's like, no, I'm just like, I got so strict about it, right?
Okay, yeah,
Like,
yeah,
so
yeah.
how did you kind of like, did it feel weird when you start to assert yourself and set healthy boundaries? Like, did it feel weird, like at first, like uncomfortable?
It felt awkward.
Yeah. Yeah.
Almost like I was betraying myself.
Right.
Yeah, because I wasn't used to that. So it was very, how would you put it? So like cross your arms. How do you normally cross your arms? Like cross your arms right now. Yeah, right. And now that's the normal stance. Now cross them the opposite way.
Wait, right? Like, I can't even do it hardly.
Yeah, it's a little goofy, right? It's a little awkward. That's how it felt. I'm like, wait, am I doing this right? Like, is this too much?
Right.
Like,
Like you question yourself
You
a
start
little.
to question yourself a little bit. So I think getting through that awkwardness and like learning to be comfortable with either one, right? And obviously in relationships, there's you got two people coming together from two different walks of life trying to make it work. So there is compromise in that, in a healthy relationship. But when you're dealing with someone that's toxic, there is no compromise. This is the
Right.
boundary. This is what's acceptable. This is what's not. And either you can respect that, or I'm out,
Right.
right? So
That's a really good way of looking at it. Mine's draw back to my father not being there, so I would it was my fault. So you definitely, I would have relationships to where I would do things, maybe lie, fabricate, just so that person won't go away. I don't want it to be my fault that they don't come. So
Right.
if I don't please them or allow them to do this way, then they might leave, or they might call back, or they may not text me. And so I was caught up in many relationships, like not knowing that would be the falter of a lot of relationships, because I wasn't. What would that be? Not unauthentic, or
I think just abandoning your own needs for others, people
right,
pleasing.
right? People pleasing.
Yeah.
pleasing,
People pleasing.
but also the fear of, because we're scared, right? Like ultimately it's the fear that they're going to leave. So
Right.
I totally identify with the little white lies,
Yeah.
just to kind of avoid that conflict and not even have to go into that. So there were a lot of little white lies, a lot of half truths, because of that. I really identify with that. Little light bulb came on when you shared that.
And I think a lot of people do, like, I like to look at why do people lie, right? Usually it's not out of like maliciousness, it's out of that. You're like trying to like people please, or you don't want to be abandoned. So you know,
Right.
little lies.
There's a good show on. It's called
There is?
yeah, it just came out. There's 3 episodes.
Ooh.
It's the what's it called? Lies. It's called.
Little Lies.
This is gonna kill me. I don't remember the show.
Big Little Lies? No, that's
No,
older.
it's a new one that just dropped. But anyways, it's about this guy who is playing two girls, right?
Oh.
And I think there's some like mom stuff going on there because they show like little glimpses of like his challenges with his mom, like little kind of flashes. You know, in movies they flash back to like childhood.
Right.
But as he's playing both of these girls, you just see the lies and the manipulation kind of just being put out there. It's gonna kill me if I don't remember the name of the show. Gonna look it up.
Look it up.
Yeah. Tell me lies.
Tell me lies.
Tell me lies. So if you're not watching anything,
Okay.
you want something good to watch,
Check it out.
it's a good show.
I'll check that out.
Isn't that a song?
What? Tell me
me
lies.
lies.
Tell
Tell
me
me
sweet
sweet little
little lies. That is a song. Yeah. So you got into, is it purple belt Pan Am's? When you fought and you competed and you won.
Oh, I
right?
competed and won in every belt.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Wow.
white, blue, purple, brown, black.
Nice. What was that like? Which one's your favorite? Which one's
I
your
have a bad shoulder to this day.
Really?
He's like, I'm still paying.
Which one? Which belt gave you the back shoulder?
I think it started white.
think that-
Yeah, it started before I got into it.
Oh, wow.
You block those things out and just keep moving forward. It was like a goal more than anything. Like I would always set those goals to like every year, like as I took to kind of not necessarily reward myself, to see what my growth is in martial arts. And then it became like therapeutic to me. I had a very stressful relationship, and what would help me cope, because I do have an addictive personality. But so what I would do is I would do a lot of jiu-jitsu, and so I would go home tired. And so when I go home tired, it'd be like, I'll look over that, or I don't have the energy to fight, or
Right.
and then that feeling that you're able to go to sleep, you're able to. It was fulfilling because there was definitely a lot of energy going into, or anxiousness of not being happy going home to somebody, or if I do that with a full amount of energy, then I'm gonna have to pick up the liquor bottle or go into some type of numbing pain. And
Right.
so jiu-jitsu became numbing to me, where I was able to
Nice.
you can't you can't physically, or you can't, things I wasn't able to say in the argument because maybe I was arguing with a master arguer, and
Right. You're not going to
they
win.
were- yeah.
You
You're not
can't
gonna
win with
win.
crazy.
I was able to kind of get my words out while I'm
Right.
practicing. And,
Oh man, I felt sorry who you're rolling
Right,
with.
right.
They
I gotta-
took a beating.
oh yeah. Poor
Would
people,
you
poor-
watch the fight last night?
I did.
What happened with Nate Diaz? So Nate Diaz fought last night, and I think he was supposed to fight Chimenez. Yeah, right.
Chimaev.
What happened there? I didn't. So he didn't make weight.
Okay, so yeah. So
Run us through that. What happened?
so how this whole thing is. So there was one guy, that guy that Chimaev beat. He wasn't even supposed to fight him, and these guys get to talking to each other in the press, and one of the guys said that Chimaev, he's only doing that for the camera. He ain't no real gangster. Like when you see him in person, he's like, "What's up? How your family?" Like he's just like all of us trying to, make money fighting.
Right.
And so I was like, "You gotta stop coming at me with this Shemaiah stuff. Like he ain't no real gangster." So Shemaiah heard that, and so on site, a kick to the chest. Like
Oh,
they were
wow.
out in public,
Wow.
and he's like, "I really am."
Whoa.
He wanted all the smoke.
Right. And so everyone didn't know where that's come from. So one guy grabs one guy like, "Hey, don't start fighting." So another dude see his dude getting grabbed. So now you got all these fighters in their
Brawl.
camps like brawling. And you got through all that. So the guy who initially did the kick, he shows up to weigh in, which is very unprofessional. Like if you're ever in the fight game and like you don't, like a lot is riding on that. Like they got these pre-sales and the belt and all this money going around, all this preparation, like not showing up and being at the weight that you were supposed to be at is like showing up to your job and not doing it. Like,
Oh, dang.
so that's considered very unprofessional. And so Shemaiah shows up to the weigh-in like 8 pounds over.
Wow, that's
like
a lot over.
That's unheard of. Some guys like a half a pound because they just inched out right. They inched out everything they possibly can, and
Wow.
so they'll be like, all right, you can go a half a pound or what 8 pounds you just gave up. And when he got on the scale, it was like, yeah, I know I'm overweight. I know I'm that. He started sticking up his middle finger, and
What?
he didn't look dehydrated. It don't even look like he was trying to get the 8 pounds over. He was just like, I'm just here to fight. Give me my money. And so the guy was like, dude, I'm not getting in the ring with you. You 10 pounds more than me. Like, that's unprofessional.
Right.
And so he didn't. So the guy, Nate, he was like, I'm not about to fight you. Like, no, dude, I'm a professional. And then this is like my last fight in the UFC. I'm not letting some rookie come in and share the spotlight with me. So Dana's like, what? But you're the main draw. Like, we need you to fight. He's like, find somebody else. And so that normally never happens.
That's how what's
And so they was just like, all right, we take here. Would you fight Tony? Tony, everyone was like, game. Of course, you probably had to like bump everyone's salary up to do that, to make it happen. And,
wow.
And that's how he did it. And it was a good card.
He
Yeah,
set his
it was a good
boundaries
card.
though, huh? Good for
Yeah,
him.
he wanted money. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Nate Diaz has been in the game for
Right.
20 years.
And it was
right?
disrespectful to him. Like, you
Yeah.
didn't show up to work
20
on
years.
time. Yeah, you didn't show up to
Yeah.
work prepared.
Yeah. That's good for him.
Huh. Yeah, good for him.
Did it give him a more favorable match, you think, with
Who?
Kim Chimene?
Shamar. Okay. So Nate. I mean, I'm no disrespect to Nate, but yeah, that would have been.
It wouldn't have been good
It
for
wouldn't
him.
have been good for him.
Oh, so he did him a favor then.
Right. Well, Dana didn't do him a favor giving him that fight. He was just like, all right, you want to, they were going back and forth. He was like, all right, let me send you on your way. And you put this little young Thundercat into the ring with this guy, and he was going to tear him up. And
He
so
was gonna tear him up.
it's hard to find that guy to fight. So the guy he kicked was like, I'll fight him. Like, I don't care, Kevin. But he didn't go and prepare for that fight. He was preparing for another guy to fight. But, you know, to make the show happen, it went in that way. And so it was good for Nate because Nate beat Tony. And Tony, he's just like Nate, like Mexican American, you know, kind of have like that Riverside lifestyle.
Okay.
They both been in the UFC for a long time but never fought each other because it was like they have a common like crew background. So it wasn't. So it was good. So it was good to see them two like finally fight, and we got it like on a 24-hour notice.
Yeah, it was a good card.
Man.
That was a good fight. The weigh-in. So there's ways that people can drop down too, right? Like you were saying, like not drinking water.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what's the, I guess, most efficient way to drop it? Have you seen people drop weight?
So weight hack. If you say this and this gets out, like you're gonna have a lot
maybe
of people like passing out. To try to,
Well, maybe no. We gonna save that when we are.
I mean,
Because it's not is it? I mean, it's all legal, right? It's just not recommended.
yeah, it's not healthy. Like
No.
yeah, it can take years off your life. Like
Really?
that way, yeah. Like I mean, you're dehydrating your head. Like so, like you're not. Have you ever been dehydrated and you had to fight? Like you know, you get dizzy.
That's
and
bad.
Getting dizzy. That's your brain. Like,
Yeah.
That's taking like nutrients and like the water from your brain, and your brain is like you're starving it, and you get hit.
Yeah,
and then you get hit. Like now you're just getting
Oh.
brute.
Right.
So just imagine, like you keep doing that so many times. It's taxing on the body.
So this
Yeah.
is, I have
Your
a question then.
Yeah.
So what about people that don't like fight professionally, right? And then like think about like, you know, addicts or people that don't take care of their bodies, right? And then they fight, right? Because they're
Right.
dehydrated. Like, do you understand what I'm saying? Like someone that's not doing it professionally, like but just looking at like just regular people, right? Or like family members or whoever, I don't know, right? If people have done that, kind of gives me like a perspective on maybe like where their brain might be some days. Does that make sense? or no?
Yeah. Well, yeah. No, I mean, it's not healthy. So
Right.
the one kind of CEO of our is the brain, right? Like he's the chief operating officer up there. So it's dehydrated, not thinking clearly.
Right.
Might not be good. I remember kind of being dehydrated in my addiction, and it turned into a psychosis. Like I was seeing things, and so dehydrated. To this day, I think it's a combination of the two. But I mean, learning more about like psychosis. Yeah, when you're dehydrated, you can go into, you can start seeing things. You figure out seeing an oasis. You start walking to it. Nothing there.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah. So where if because you got into coaching too, right? So now you coach. Yeah, where are you at nowadays?
So I got a group of guys over there in Culver City. It's a breakfast crew. We get there Monday through Friday and Saturday. Monday through Saturday, 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. And there's a bunch of like professionals that like to get their workout in and learn the jiu-jitsu early in the morning before they go off to work and whatnot. And it's fun. I like teaching and coaching.
Where could someone find you? Like if someone's looking to kind of get into the sport or just get into getting healthier.
Yeah.
You got like a Instagram or
Yeah,
a
you
website?
can find me. I'm on Coach Mike Carnes. You can find me. I say this, but I don't know how long I'm going to be there. I'm going to be a firefighter pretty soon.
Oh, that's
so
right.
yeah.
That's
Oh.
going into.
Sorry.
Cool.
Yeah. So for now, only thing I will be keeping is the jiu-jitsu portion. I won't probably be able to work people out as much anymore because my days would be kind of filled with
Right.
being firefighter stuff. But yeah, until then, you can find me on at Coach Mike Carnes on Instagram. Same as on Twitter. My gym is located, if there's a landmark, if you guys already know what Dinah's Chicken is, right across the street from the Howard Hughes Center.
Oh, yeah.
I'm in that little parking lot, big yellow sign.
Nice.
Garage is always open, and you guys come in. And
We get
Yeah.
Chelsea in there for a
Yeah.
session.
I would love that.
so
It'd be
what book is it I read? Like the most, The Body Keeps the Score.
I love that book.
Oh, that's a
yeah.
great-
And he talks about like jiu-jitsu as a way to help like people who suffer from PTSD and people. His jiu-jitsu is a very
Yeah.
It's a very good sport to kind of help people like overcome or learn how to calm their brain down or calm their heart down and still perform.
Yeah.
Right.
Can you teach us a move? No.
Yeah.
Do you have like
Clear an
today?
armbar.
Yeah, no, not
He-
today.
he-
we
right
need
here.
to-
Well, I just like sort
Chairs
of
back.
basic like
I need
no.
a help. You want me?
Oh no, we can another time. I'm just like
He'll pin you down.
oh, I just know there's like a move that you could just like a sitting in your chair, like a jiu-jitsu move. No.
Like that. That's more karate.
Oh, that's karate.
The 5-finger like death blow.
Oh yeah. Okay. What is that?
It's like this.
Oh, okay.
I better not learn that. That's all about power.
Yeah.
I didn't touch him.
It wasn't me.
Sorry.
No, the
Curious.
well, yeah, because with trauma, a lot of times, so like when you go into therapy, right, and you go in to do trauma work, you're basically working on the mind, right, the brain, right, but like you're saying, like when you experience a traumatic event, your brain is not the only thing that took a hit. Your body, your heart, like all those things are stored in the body.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important, like for people who are healing from trauma, to get into a sport, or whatever it may be, something that incorporates the body, because you're working that out of you,
Right.
and not only talking it through. So I think the recovery has to be very eclectic in the sense that not only am I getting the insight, but also allowing my body to heal, allowing me to feel safe in my body,
Yeah.
because it records it.
Yeah, and we can't heal if our body is like not calm, right?
Right.
It has to be in like a calm state for us to actually heal that trauma.
Yes. It goes back to the kind of fight or flight. I remember we were coming home from Disneyland one time. My parents were still together at this time. It was late at night, and I'm walking into the house. I was the first one, boom, in the house. I must have been like 5 or 6. And I go in the pantry to get like a little snack. I was hungry. And when I open it, there's a man standing there just looking at me. And then he just bolts out the back door. And I remember kind of just freezing. I was frozen.
Yeah.
But that feeling that I felt back then, I noticed that it would surface at different times in my life, throughout my life. and I never really understood it. Like I just kind of pushed it away. Kind of like you were saying, I would turn to something to kind of numb it. But for me, part of my healing also was learning to kind of accentuate. Is that the word? Yeah, where you make it bigger, right? Like accentuate that feeling and not push it away, but lean into it. And I think the more I did that, like my relationship with that feeling started to change, and I was able to release some of that fear that I had about walking into rooms and not knowing what was going to happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think there's an importance of any type of physical activity that we do.
Very true.
So if you're looking to get fit, Mike Carnes will get you there.
You're right on.
Yeah, he
Thank
will
you.
take you there. You got any questions for us, Mike?
No, I think you guys did a great job. Help filling in all the holes that I left when you guys were asking questions, and I actually have no. Oh yeah, I do. Well, everyone on the podcast all know what you guys do, right? I didn't know you were a therapist, so
Yeah.
where can everyone find you?
Yeah.
What's your
ChelseaAutumn.com, and yeah, my Instagram's Chelsea Autumn Love. But I do like therapy, coaching, very like spiritual, like kind of
Right.
spiritual escort, like love, everything just mind, body, spirit.
I love it. I love it. I think you got to hit all three
Yeah.
areas too.
Yeah.
Like not only the mind, but like you said, the spirit and the body. It's like all three need their nurturing. And I
Yeah.
think the more we nurture those components, the more alignment they're in, the more effective we could be at like navigating these kind of challenges that come with life.
Yeah. And what about you? Where can we find you, Marcos?
You can find me.
What is you? Yeah.
You can find me in St. Louis. You remember that song? No,
I don't remember it either. I'm just
that was
laughing.
Kelly. Remember
Nelly.
Not Kelly.
Oh,
Nelly.
Nelly.
You can find me.
Oh, I love.
St.
Oh, yeah.
Louis,
Yeah, I love Nelly.
where the gun play
Yes.
ring all day.
Yes, I remember that now.
Yeah, no, you can't find me in St. Louis, but you can find me in Westlake, California. I'm also on Instagram as Marcos Guillen. And you could also hit the website. That would be in the footnotes, Marcos on Air. And we'd love to have you come through. This is a container.
Yes.
My goal is to create a container, a space where people feel safe to talk about their history, talk about challenges, and explore ideas on how we can find some empowerment from the pain that we've experienced in our life. Ultimately, it's how can I transform my pain into power so that I can navigate my life a little smoother, a little easier. So, yeah, what we created here is a container for people. So you can find me right here in this room if you're interested. We'll make space for you. We'll host space for you.
Host space. I like
Yes.
that.
Well, guys, thanks for having me. It was my first podcast. I enjoyed it. I always wanted to be on one.
Man, you live now. As soon as we get all the edits and everything, I'll send you the link so you can have it for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, it's awesome.
Maybe we get you back in here down the road to see where you're at with the firefighting
I'm
thing.
down.
Yeah.
I'm sure I have some good stories to tell you.
That's a big thing in California, too. I mean, being a firefighter, right?
Yeah. The process they put you through. Oh man, it's been long.
What's the training for that? Is it conditioning? Is it?
Yeah, it's like more of a CrossFit training. Like you have to do multiple things. Totally different from like beach body workouts.
Right.
It's like everything strength, like grips. The strong part, it has to be your grips and your legs. So a lot of chin ups, a lot of push ups, a lot of squats, climbing ladders, and you got to be like agile because you got your equipment is 80 pounds and you're climbing up ladders, you're potentially bringing somebody down. So it's like that. It's like CrossFit workout. It helps out with that.
Oh, see, that's up your alley.
That's up my alley.
Yeah, you got that. Yeah. Be saving cats here soon.
Yeah, save all the cats.
Save all the cats. No, but a true story. My cat, I had two cats. It was Carl and Jags. And Carl was a tree climber, right? And so he would climb up the tree and he wouldn't come down. I almost called the fire department. I ended up taking my butt up there.
Really?
Getting him down. But yeah.
He didn't want to come. He couldn't come down himself.
He climbed up. He was still like a baby. So he climbed up and got stuck.
Oh.
and he couldn't make his way back down.
Yeah, I called the fire department when I lost my cat. I didn't know where she was, but I was like, maybe she's like inside my neighbor's walls, or I don't know, because she like escaped. And so like 3 firefighters came, and I'm like, I think she's in there. And they're like, okay, well, we can either destroy their house or you can wait for her to come out. I'm like, okay. We'll
See,
wait.
I thought that was just in movies. That's why I didn't
I
call, but it's a real
actually
thing.
did it.
You
They're
get
just
those
down the
calls,
street
yeah.
from me, so I'm like, whatever. I was like distraught. The cat.
You just wanted to see some men in uniform. Come on, Chelsea.
Maybe that was it. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some about like men in uniform,
Right?
or women in uniform too. But
Yeah, it's like that suit, huh?
That
It's like
suit,
just
buttoned
dressing up, right? Button up. Oh,
all right, let's close it out.
okay. I don't know.
Yeah.